Oi boys, welcome back to another video on the channel. We bring in the new month with another Rugby 25 updates, and we're entering early access 5, another major update. And it says here in the notes, dear players, we are happy to announce the release of early access 5, our 5th major release during Rugby 25 early access period. Notes for what is included in this update are outlined below, and there's a few points to get through. So first and foremost, we'll address the additions that aren't gameplay related, and then we'll read what's been improved on gameplay, and I'll give my feedback, or more so my reaction to playing in the current build. So the biggest thing that they've added is another new licensed competition, that is the United Rugby Championship, including the 16 teams and the 2024 to 2025 fixtures. Like the other leagues that have been added, it's got its own slot in the competition mode, and it says a number of these teams will feature photogrammetry visuals, with additional photogrammetry coming in the future. I did try and play with some South African teams. Unfortunately, that was met with a little bit of disappointment as they haven't been face scanned yet. Something I did notice is that these teams are super high rated. I don't know if that's justified, but it did feel nice kind of playing with some stacked teams. I ended up bumping up the difficulty to the hardest or the highest level, and we actually did alright. We can definitely hold our own on the hardest difficulty. In addition to the URC competition being added, they've added more stadiums. It says here several additional stadiums have been added in this update, including the officially licensed Cardiff Arms Park, Scottstown Kingspan Stadium, ? Apologies for the mispronunciation, Swansea.com Stadium, and Dexcom Stadium, as well as more Major League Rugby stadiums. Moving on, the next change that's glaringly obvious is the added HUD elements. So a meter showing control over the ruck has been added, as well as HUD to identify those offside, both with an offside line shown during rucks and indicators on individual players. So my thoughts on these changes: I do like it to an extent. I do feel it's a bit cluttered with having both the individual player indicators as well as the line in regards to players being offside. Also, seeing a gauge for the ruck I do like, although I'm unsure how to gain momentum or shift momentum during ruck exchanges. For now, it just feels kind of pointless to have. Moving on to the next point, improved graphics. Various tweaks have been made to the graphical appearance of the game, including work adjusting the grass and various aspects of lighting and player detail. The grass in particular, was pretty noticeable. Although my game has been tweaking since the updates, I ended up lowering it to medium graphics, and now it runs alright. And lastly, before we get to the gameplay, chat improved stability. Several improvements to resolve non-progression issues during gameplay have been implemented in this update. And now moving on to the changes to gameplay. The gameplay improvements: the improved Moors. Moors have been reworked in this update, improving animation fluidity as well as the gameplay experience. Improved general gameplay. Several general gameplay improvements have been made in addition to the ones added during the early access 4 interim updates. These include improving the passing at rucks, quick passes, catches, touch line avoidance, and more. So the verdict: how was my experience playing the handful of matches that I did? I ended up playing around, I'd say 8 to 10 matches. And about 8 out of the 10, we had crashes. I've already submitted my ticket, and most of the crashes were due to my controller disconnecting. Whenever I reconnected my controller, the game just crashed. So a bit of a disappointing or bittersweet experience so far with this latest update. I was able to complete one match, one 14-minute match, and before we crashed in another game, we did end up thrashing the computer on the hardest difficulty. Thankfully, we've got recordings of those tries. I think we scored some of our cleanest tries so far. My biggest takeaway in regards to gameplay for this patch is that they've got the passing dialed in. It's as I said in our previous video. Passing in general is good enough for them to move on and focus on a different aspect of the game, as well as support play. I think is the best it's been, or the best it's going to be. I've had a lot of fun playing a pass heavy style of rugby, and it'll make for some pretty interesting encounters online in my opinion, especially the offloading. It feels pretty fluid with those new looking tackle animations. Now that's all the positives. The passing and all areas surrounding the passes are pretty much sussed out. Like I said, I'd like to see them move on to a different area of the game now. Some other positives I noticed was at the kickoff. I'm not too sure how new this is, but when kicking short and high, I did see some new lift animations, which was pretty refreshing and realistic. And I did notice the difference when running down the sideline. It's not as easy to get tackled over. I'm not too sure if I like that. I think if you do flirt with the sideline, you should get punished. Overall, Early Access 5 was a decent update. Looking past the bugs and the crashes and just talking about what's been addressed in the patch notes, I'd say it's mostly positive. Although we didn't touch on the rolling mauls, I did try and engage in mauls, but they still feel buggy and just dysfunctional as usual, unfortunately. That'll probably be the biggest disappointment in the patch, that mauls are still pretty bad, especially transitioning from the line out throw to a maul. I'm not sure if you can perform a rolling maul in general play, but the line out versions of the maul is just a headache to deal with. As we take one more skim over the patch notes, is there anything else I want to touch on? I think we've covered all of it, pretty much. Now, we're not too sure what's next. They did give us a roadmap for September, October, nothing yet for November and December. I did read somewhere that online play should be coming up soon. I'll be sure to get some matches in on that. I'm not looking forward to my experience on online play. In any rugby game, whether it be rugby league or rugby union, they tend to be exploits fests and cheese fests and never play out to like a decent match of rugby. But yeah, I guess we'll soon find out, boys. We are going to call it there. We still got some decent gameplay, so we'll let that play out. I'll chuck all the tries in there. For now though, if you did enjoy the video, be sure to run it straight at that like button, and for more rugby related content or more content in general, go ahead and drop your boy a cheeky sub. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you later.